Last year, my sister and my brother-in-law had a very large and successful off-grid self-watering container gardening system using the 1/4-inch tubing and a sock for a wick. They recently moved during August and they were able to bring their garden with them. Actually, what they had planted over there was at end of season, so they brought their buckets and their soil and they rebuilt using the new off-grid self-watering container gardening system method using a net cup and 1/2-inch tubing. If you haven't seen my video on how to build this system using 1/2-inch tubing and net cup, please click the link below. So let's see what they've done and improvements they've made in their new elevated off-grid self-watering container gardening system. Here's their new raised garden. One of the big advantages of using buckets or rain gutters like Larry Hall does is that you can raise your garden to be convenient for you to work in. If you don't like bending over or having to dig down into the dirt, this is a great solution to gardening. Let me walk you through the steps that my brother-in-law and I took when we built this garden. First thing we did is we took all the old buckets that we're using here and we dumped the soil out, remixed it with another cup of organic fertilizer. Here in Texas we like to use the Micro Life organic fertilizer that puts the minerals and all the elements that the plants need to thrive in this soil. We added water to it, which brought it back to the right consistency it needed to be. Then what we did is we took the watering buckets and we drilled 7 to 8-inch holes right here and got some grommets to put those in. Now my brother-in-law found a great deal at Granger where you can buy 100 of those grommets for, I think it's $13. So it works out to be about 13 cents a grommet, whereas at Home Depot for the exact same grommet I was paying $1.17. So check the link below to be able to get your grommet at Granger. You can actually have it delivered to their store or to your house and save a lot of money and have some extras that help others out. Once we drilled out the buckets, then what we did is we drilled out the holes here below to add the net cups. Let me show you what that looks like. Here are the net cups that we used. They worked really well and they are doing a great job in wicking up the water from below. I'll have a link below where you can get the best quality net cups I could find online at a very good price. They come in groups of 20, or you can also check a local hydroponic store to see if they have them. Once we had the net cups in, we added the soil and then planted the plants. And then we set those aside, and then we got all our buckets and then laid them out on the ground where we wanted to have them placed. Checked the planting instructions off of these little sticks that came. Took the plants that needed a large root base, which are the tomato plants and the plants that we have in the 5-gallon buckets. Then we measured out the 1/2-inch tubing. Seems that 15 inches puts the center of each of these buckets 24 inches apart, which is what the directions say to plant them. So these buckets in the back are 24 inches apart and they're 5-gallon buckets. Once we assembled all those and also added the float bucket, we then set up the 4-gallon buckets. These plants, according to the instructions, should be planted 18 inches apart, which we did. So we used 9-inch tubing. I like to have about 1 inch of the tubing sticking through the bucket below. Once we connected all those tubings together, we were able to see how much space we needed. Then he went out and bought some 8-foot long studs. I would recommend that you use treated lumber because this will probably last a season and then need to be replaced. And he also bought 1-inch by 3-inch strips of lumber. We cut those 18 inches in length, cut it 45 degree on both sides and the bottom to make points. Then we screwed everything together with galvanized screws, and we have 16-foot lengths here. Then we came out here, we hammered these into the ground, got it level. Then we brought this out here, hammered those into the ground, got it level. Then we took the watering buckets without the plants and the soil buckets, we laid them up on here, and we added water. Now the nice thing about them living here is they can actually use rainwater from the rain catchment system that they have here on this house. Here they are right here, coming directly from these 4 275-gallon IBC totes. If you haven't seen my video on how to do this rain catchment, please watch that. Water is going to be a very important resource, and you want to be able to capture it if it's legal in your state or your location. So once we get that hooked up, then we turn the water on and let the water level everything in the buckets here. Now, because we didn't have the soil in here, we could see the water level, and we could tell that when this bucket here was the same depth of water as this bucket here, then we knew we had it right. So we just hammered with the big mallet until this one was approximately the same level of this bucket, which it is, and it worked out great. Then we came back, put all the tall plants in the buckets here, and all the shorter plants in the buckets here. And in addition to that, for the taller plants that are growing a little bit, we've added the tree mulch so that they can have some insulation from the heat, and when it rains, it'll help this decompose and get into the buckets. This red bell pepper needs some, this needs some, this needs more. This should be filled up all the way to the top. And so when those plants get big enough, that's what they'll do. We also took the ultimate bucket here, which has been kind of neglected, but has still strawberries growing in it. We're going to rebuild this by removing the sock, drilling out the larger hole, putting in a net cup, refertilizing the soil with the MicroLife organic fertilizer, put the strawberry plants back in, and then put it back there. We included a 2-foot wide row in between. 3 foot would be more preferable, but we're kind of running out of room into the rest of the garden over here. I hope this helps. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. And if you've got some extra time and some buckets and some wood, you can have a elevated, off-grid, self-watering gardening system.